Have you ever stopped to think about how many times you were truly respected for being a good person? Have you ever felt that the more you try to please, the less you are valued? And what if this obsession with being good is actually what's destroying you? Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Niccolo Machiavelli. The truth is simple but painful. You are exhausted. Maybe you can't even explain why exactly, but you feel it. You feel as if you're carrying an invisible weight, a constant obligation to keep everything in balance, to please everyone, avoid conflicts, and always be understanding. From a young age, you were taught that being good was the right path, that, in the end, the righteous triumph, that all it takes is to act with honesty, humility, and justice for the world to recognize it. But what if all of that is just a comfortable lie? A script handed to you to make you obedient, predictable, and easy to manipulate? How many times have you silenced your own voice to preserve peace? How many times have you swallowed your tears, your anger, your pride, just to avoid disappointing anyone? How many times have you allowed someone to humiliate you and still smiled, saying, "It's okay"? The goodness that's always been sold to you as virtue may in fact be an invisible leash. The world doesn't reward the good. The world rewards the strategic. If you're here, listening to these words, it's because you've already felt this in your own skin. You've been the nice guy, the understanding person, the friend who always gets it. And you've also felt that silent pain when you realize the more you give, the less you receive. The more you bend, the more they demand. The more you try to be accepted, the less you are respected. This is where Machiavelli becomes relevant. Not as the villain history painted him, but as someone who had the courage to expose an uncomfortable truth. Pure morality, detached from reality, is a trap. Being seen as good is not the same as being effective, and living to please is living as a hostage of your own kindness. This video is an invitation to break free. Together, let's cross the veil of moral lies and face the uncomfortable yet necessary truth about this obsession with being good. You don't need to become cruel, but you do need to awaken. Because as long as you try to please everyone, you'll continue to be a slave to the image others have created for you. If you're tired of being used, ignored, and discarded, perhaps it's time to learn what they never taught you. How to stop being just the nice person and finally earn the respect you deserve. Are you ready? Then come, the transformation begins now. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times you were truly respected for being a good person? Have you ever felt that the more you try to please, the less you are valued? And what if this obsession with being good is actually what's destroying you? Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Niccolo Machiavelli. The truth is simple but painful. You are exhausted. Maybe you can't even explain why exactly, but you feel it. You feel as if you're carrying an invisible weight, a constant obligation to keep everything in balance, to please everyone, avoid conflicts, and always be understanding. From a young age, you were taught that being good was the right path, that, in the end, the righteous triumph, that all it takes is to act with honesty, humility, and justice for the world to recognize it. But what if all of that is just a comfortable lie? A script handed to you to make you obedient, predictable, and easy to manipulate? How many times have you silenced your own voice to preserve peace? How many times have you swallowed your tears, your anger, your pride, just to avoid disappointing anyone? How many times have you allowed someone to humiliate you and still smiled, saying, "It's okay"? The goodness that's always been sold to you as virtue may in fact be an invisible leash. The world doesn't reward the good. The world rewards the strategic. If you're here, listening to these words, it's because you've already felt this in your own skin. You've been the nice guy, the understanding person, the friend who always gets it. And you've also felt that silent pain when you realize the more you give, the less you receive. The more you bend, the more they demand. The more you try to be accepted, the less you are respected. This is where Machiavelli becomes relevant. Not as the villain history painted him, but as someone who had the courage to expose an uncomfortable truth. Pure morality, detached from reality, is a trap. Being seen as good is not the same as being effective, And living to please is living as a hostage of your own kindness. This video is an invitation to break free. Together, let's cross the veil of moral lies and face the uncomfortable yet necessary truth about this obsession with being good. You don't need to become cruel, but you do need to awaken. Because as long as you try to please everyone, you'll continue to be a slave to the image others have created for you. If you're tired of being used, ignored, and discarded, perhaps it's time to learn what they never taught you. How to stop being just the nice person and finally earn the respect you deserve. Are you ready? Then come, the transformation begins now. Kindness without strength becomes currency for the clever, an excuse for the exploiters, food for emotional predators who feed on your guilt, hesitation, and need for acceptance. And the more you try to prove you're trustworthy, the more you stop being seen as a person. You become a tool. Have you noticed that those who command respect don't need to justify themselves? That those with boundaries may not be loved, but they are heard? Meanwhile, you, with all your kindness, are constantly interrupted, overwhelmed, and forgotten. This happens because the world doesn't respect the pleasant. It respects those who impose consequences. Machiavelli wasn't a proponent of evil. He was a relentless observer of reality. He saw what few had the courage to admit. Morality, when blind, is used as a tool for domination. And those who live to appear good, sooner or later, lose everything, even themselves. The good person who refuses to play the game becomes disposable. You can offer everything, time, care, loyalty, but the moment you stop being useful, you'll be forgotten. No guilt, no remorse. After all, you never asked for more than that. The world understands limits. It doesn't understand sacrifices. So here comes the first uncomfortable truth. Your goodness is imprisoning you. Not because being good is wrong, but because your goodness is being used against you. As long as you insist on hiding behind the mask of the good person, you will continue denying yourself, denying your strength, your voice, your dignity. You were not born to please everyone. This hunger for acceptance, this urgency to avoid conflicts, this fear of disturbing others, and it was learned, conditioned, imposed. From an early age, you understood, perhaps without words, perhaps just through glances and subtle punishments, that being your whole self wasn't enough. You learned that love came at a price, and that price was your silence. All it took was to say, "I didn't like that," or "that hurt me," to be called spoiled, ungrateful, or exaggerated. It was enough to cry at the wrong time to be reprimanded. It was enough to be spontaneous, emotional, honest, and you were shaped by it. And so, you molded yourself. It started with small gestures, a forced smile here, a fake "I'm fine" there. Soon it became a way of life, swallowing your pride, yielding before anyone even asked, pretending not to care. All of this became routine because, at some point in your story, you learned that your emotional survival depended on not being rejected. The problem is, this adaptation turned into submission, an automatic mechanism of self-neglect. You became an expert at sensing what others want to hear, feeling the atmosphere, measuring your words, anticipating disappointments, all just to avoid the discomfort of being poorly perceived. But the cruelest part is that you think this is empathy. It's not. It's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being called selfish, difficult, insensitive, fear of being who you truly are, someone with limits, desires, anger, and a voice. And while you live this fear disguised as kindness, the world reads you exactly for what you show: weakness. Machiavelli understood this. He didn't speak about psychology as we understand it today, but he understood the human soul like few others. He knew that people respect what imposes consequences. He knew that those who never threaten, never confront, never impose are never taken seriously. This also applies to you. You can be kind, but if you never stand your ground, you will be treated as a tool, not a presence. You can be generous, but if you never say enough, you will be drained until exhaustion. And the worst part is, no one will feel guilty for it, because the world doesn't measure goodness, it measures utility. If your goodness is always offered without criteria, without reciprocity, without pause, it stops being virtue and turns into a resource. Have you noticed how the good ones are always running after people, always justifying, always explaining, always apologizing for existing, while those who set boundaries, even if less friendly, are listened to, respected, remembered? This isn't a coincidence, it's psychological structure, emotional hierarchy. The submissive lives in fear of being abandoned, the assertive lives with the clarity of who can stay and who can go. The submissive hides behind masks of empathy. The assertive shows their face even when it's uncomfortable. The submissive hopes their kindness will speak for itself. The assertive knows that without presence, without a voice, there is no respect. There is today a great emotional confusion. The idea that being nice is the same as being good. It's not. Being nice is being pleasant. Being good is being fair. Being nice is avoiding conflicts. Being good is facing what's necessary. Being nice is smiling on the outside while bleeding on the inside. Being good is saying, "This hurts me and I won't accept it anymore." The psychology of submission is, in fact, the psychology of fear. Fear of breaking fragile bonds, fear of not being loved, fear of losing spaces that only exist because you've accepted to live bent. But the truth, as raw as it is necessary, is that those who live in fear of being abandoned are already abandoning themselves every day. If you continue like this, afraid to displease, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being yourself, you will end up empty. You'll look in the mirror and won't know who you are anymore. You will live as everyone's favorite character, except your own, because the price of submission is self-extinction. Machiavelli would say, "It's not about being loved, it's about not being ignored." And that only happens when you have the courage to impose yourself, to say no, to represent consequence. Being cruel is not the solution, but being harmless isn't either. There is a middle path, and it's only accessible when you understand that being submissive is not being good. It's being conditioned, trained to please, kept in a perpetual state of fear and emotional dependence. You deserve to get out of this, but for that you must face a brutal question. Is your kindness born from love or fear? Because if it's from fear, it's not kindness. It's armor, it's a shield, it's a prison, and you were not made to live trapped. You were made to be whole. You spent your life believing you would be recognized for your essence, that just being sincere, fair, humble, would make people see your truth. But Machiavelli, more than 500 years ago, already wrote a sentence that pierces any naive idealism like a dagger. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few feel what you really are. This phrase is both a blow and a revelation. It exposes that the world does not respond to your inner truth. The world responds to the image you project, to what you represent, to the impact you make, to the fear or respect you evoke. It's cruel, no doubt, but it's real. While you live waiting for people to notice your good intentions, you will continue to be ignored by those who know how to play the game. Because life, whether you like it or not, is a game of perception. Machiavelli didn't write to create monsters. He wrote to teach survival. He knew that in a world populated by wolves, being just a lamb is asking to be devoured. But he also pointed to an exit, and it begins with a new type of virtue. Not the virtue preached by moralists, which demands purity, passivity, and submission, but the Machiavellian virtue, a blend of courage, strategic intelligence, emotional coldness, and firm presence. Machiavelli said that the prince, the one who wants to govern his life instead of being governed by it, must be like two animals, the fox and the lion. The prince needs the cunning of the fox to recognize traps and the strength of the lion to intimidate wolves. This metaphor is one of the most brutal and liberating ever written. The fox observes, reads the environment, perceives hidden intentions, knows when to remain silent and when to act. It doesn't trust blindly, it sees through masks. The lion, on the other hand, commands respect simply by its presence. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't apologize. Its silent firmness is enough to say, "Not with me." It doesn't need to be cruel, it needs to be inevitable. And that's the key. You need to be both. You must see emotional games before they consume you, and be strong enough to make others think twice before testing your limits. Because, as painful as it may be, this is what the world respects. presence, boundaries, consequence. You don't need to stop being sensitive, generous, or compassionate, but you need to understand that these qualities, without contour, without structure, without boundaries, become traps. The same compassion that heals can also destroy you if it's given to those who only want to consume you. This is why Machiavelli invites us to stop seeking approval and start building internal authority. Not an authority that shouts, dominates, or instills fear through brute force, but an authority that commands respect with firm silence, with the clarity of saying no, with the courage to be who you are, without kneeling for acceptance. And that's when the real shift happens. You don't need to become a tyrant. You need, however, to stop being a ghost. The world treats well those who have power, and this power is born in your ability to say enough, to stop justifying yourself, to understand that not everyone deserves explanations, and even less deserves your best. You don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to stop asking for permission to exist. The image you project holds weight. If you present yourself as someone always available, always nice, always willing to please, you will be treated as a resource. And resources can be used and discarded without ceremony. But when you present yourself with presence, with a firm gaze, with a clear voice, and with an unwavering stance, you begin to change not only the way the world sees you, but, more importantly, the way you see yourself. The greatest power that Machiavelli teaches is not to dominate others. It is to stop being dominated by the fear of displeasing. You can be loved, yes, but to be feared in the sense of being taken seriously, of representing a force, is often the safest way to be respected. And respect is the foundation of any true relationship. Without it, everything is theater. So, look at yourself now. Have you been a fox falling into emotional traps? Have you been a lion? Or have you kept your roar only inside while displaying a smile on the outside? Is the image you project aligned with the value you carry? Or do you present yourself as small, secretly hoping that the world will recognize a greatness you hide? The prince, and in this context, the prince is you, needs to awaken. He needs to shed the cloak of innocence and don the armor of clarity. He must understand that being a strategist doesn't betray your essence. It protects it. More than that, you need to understand that your best is not an automatic obligation. It is a gift. And gifts should only be given to those who honor them, never to those who consume them. So it's time for the question you've avoided your whole life. Do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? It may seem cruel, I know, but this is exactly where true freedom begins. It's almost inhumane, but it is the silent choice that Machiavelli leads us to make. The search for love, when born of fear, need, or emotional dependence, becomes one of the subtlest prisons that exist. And the worst part, it is a prison where you lock the door yourself. There are no bars when the need for approval imprisons you. There are no shackles when the fear of displeasing dictates your steps. No external censorship is needed when you sabotage yourself to fit into others' expectations. The truth that few have the courage to face is harsh. The obsession with being seen as good, pleasant, and kind does not stem from virtue, but from the shame of being who you are. This shame is treacherous. It disguises itself as humility, wears the mask of kindness, presents itself as empathy. But deep down, it is merely the reflection of the secret belief that you are not enough as you are. This is why you mold yourself, recalibrate yourself, adapt to each environment, each person. You say yes when you want to scream no. You forgive too quickly. You smile when, inside, all you want to do is cry or protest. And when you realize it, you've spent your life trying to maintain an image that was never truly yours. You became what others needed you to be, and forgot who you were before all of this. Those who live only to be loved become eternally enslaved to the gaze of others. Those who desire to be free must be willing to be misunderstood. This phrase is not from Machiavelli, but it could be. Because what he teaches us is that true freedom begins when you stop living to meet others' expectations and start acting according to what you demand of yourself. But don't be mistaken. This path is not easy. It is arid, lonely. Many people will distance themselves. They will say you have changed, that you've become cold, that you're strange. And you will ask yourself, Am I being cruel? The answer is no. You are, for the first time, being honest. And honesty after years of self-deception is frightening. Unsettling. Why? Because it breaks the invisible pact you had with the world. I sacrifice myself, and in return, you love me. But the currency with which they paid you was false. It wasn't love, it was convenience. When you finally abandon the role of the nice guy, the one who always understands, the one who always accepts, you break that pact and begin to make a new commitment, now, to yourself. I will be loyal to my truth, even if it costs me the acceptance of those who only knew how to love me while I remained silent. True freedom requires courage to abandon the character, to endure the discomfort of not pleasing everyone, to face disapproving glances without averting your eyes. Because the love that matters doesn't require you to erase yourself, and the respect that strengthens you is not born from submission, but from coherence, from the courage to be whole, from the audacity to be enough for yourself. And here comes the most brutal part of all. No one will set you free. There will be no applause, no diploma, no finish line with fireworks announcing, "Congratulations, now you are free." True freedom happens in silence, in discomfort, in the restrained anger you transform into clarity, in the old pain that becomes the foundation for a new life. And when that happens, something inside you changes forever. You no longer beg for affection. You no longer beg for recognition. You choose. You decide who to open the doors to and who to keep them closed for. This is what it means to be the prince of yourself, to abandon the position of a subject to others' opinions and assume the kingdom of your own truth. Yes, you can still be a good person, but not at the cost of your soul, not a kindness that accepts everything in silence, not a gentleness that demands your annulment to exist. If that's the case, it's not kindness, it's domestication. And no one was born to be domesticated. So I ask you now directly, without beating around the bush, do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? This answer is not in your head. It lives in your choices, in what you will do from now on. You have crossed 4 layers, deconstructed the image of blind goodness, recognized the roots of submission, discovered the strategic power that Machiavelli saw, and now you are faced with the hardest choice of adulthood: please the world or be true to yourself. Perhaps the answer is still forming within you, and that's okay. Real change doesn't arrive with fanfare. It comes with silence, pain, and sometimes with a bit of anger. But it is precisely in that discomfort that the most authentic transformations are born. The world respects those who have learned to respect themselves. The rest is just theater, and you deserve to step off the stage and take control of the script of your own story. If you've made it this far, it's a sign that something inside you no longer fits in the old fantasy of being good at any cost. This crack in your social armor is the beginning of your freedom. I remember the first time I realized my goodness was destroying me. It was in a conversation with a friend I admired, someone who unknowingly said with his eyes, "You're too kind for this world." At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Today, I understand it was a warning. I accepted everything, gave myself without limits, stayed silent, adapted. Until after another situation where I was ignored, I felt a burning anger inside. Anger at others, yes, but mostly at myself. That night, I wrote a phrase on a piece of paper and stuck it on the mirror. Being good isn't about fading away. Being good is having the courage to exist fully. It took me years to understand the true meaning of those words. And maybe, right now, you're going through something similar. If so, I want you to know, I see you. This channel, these videos, these scripts, they're not about giving life lessons. They're about lighting paths in dark places where many are walking alone. And if, in some way, one of those lights touched something inside you today, then it was worth it. If you haven't subscribed yet, no problem. Keep being nice, keep letting life flow its course. The algorithm loves those who live to please. But if you're ready to stop being a molded version of yourself like this video, comment below about the last time you said no without guilt, and subscribe. Not because I'm asking, but because it's time for you to start acting in alignment with your own choices. Real change happens when you face what is necessary without fear. The path to your transformation is yours, and you will have to walk it. We'll meet again soon, when you're ready to take the next step.